This is the anatomical chart, which shows 4 different views of a torso. And on the various views, there are different structures that are visible. So I am going to go through one picture, one view at a time, and just identify some of the major structures that are visible on each one. On this first one, you can see the thymus, which is part of the lymphatic system. It is a gland that's located in the chest. You can also see the lungs. This is the right lung, superior lobe, middle lobe, inferior lobe. And this is the left lung. This is the superior lobe and the inferior lobe. This is the cardiac notch, which makes room for the heart to fit. And then a little bit lower down, you can see parts of the digestive system. This white membrane sort of binds the large intestine and holds it together. This is called the tinea of the colon, or tinea coli. And this arrow is pointing to the transverse colon, which is this section of the large intestine. This is the very first part of the large intestine, which is called the cecum. This arrow is pointing to the small intestine, which is this entire coiled up structure in the middle. This is pointing to the yellowish membrane that's called the mesentery, which binds the small intestine together. And down here, this is pointing to the descending colon. You can just see part of it here, but it does extend all the way down this side. Here is the next view of the torso. So here you can see a little bit deeper into the body. You can see the liver, the right lobe of the liver, left lobe of the liver. Here's the gallbladder in green. This is the membrane that connects the liver to the stomach, which is pictured here. It's called the lesser omentum. This is identifying the ascending colon, which is this portion of the colon. This again is the cecum, the very first little section, first like inch or two of the large intestine. And hanging off of the cecum right here is the appendix, or vermiform appendix. Then, so we have the cecum, the ascending colon, and the colon curves around, and this curvature is called the right colic flexure, also called the hepatic flexure, and either term is appropriate to use. And then it travels across and then it curves down again. So this curvature is called the left colic flexure or splenic flexure. And then this portion here is called the descending colon. Down here where it curves around, it's called the sigmoid colon. This arrow is again pointing to the white membrane called the tinea. And this is pointing to a membrane that's located kind of in between and behind the colon. It's called the mesocolon. Okay, going down to the third picture. Here, the liver is removed. And so now you can see the diaphragm, which is this muscle that goes across. It goes underneath the lungs and it extends down kind of up against the back body wall. This organ right here is the spleen, this purplish colored organ. This arrow is pointing to the splenic vein. And this one is pointing to the red blood vessel, that's the splenic artery. This is pointing to the yellow organ, which is the pancreas. And then we've got a few other blood vessels here. This is the inferior vena cava, this really large blue vessel. And then this is pointing to the celiac trunk. And then down here, this is the abdominal aorta. So it extends all the way, it goes behind the pancreas and the intestines, but goes all the way down the length of the abdominal cavity. And then here's the last picture. There's a bunch of blood vessels that are visible on here. These are the common carotid arteries. This is the subclavian artery. Over here, this is the subclavian artery as well. So this is the left side and this is the right side. This is the brachiocephalic artery, brachiocephalic trunk. This is the aortic arch. Then let's see, this is pointing to some lymphatic vessels right here. Then this again is pointing to the diaphragm. You can see that really well right here, this entire structure that goes across and then down against the back body wall. This is the inferior vena cava again, just like you saw up here. This entire thing is the inferior vena cava. Now you can see it much better here now that a lot of the organs have been removed. This whole large red vessel is the abdominal aorta, just like you saw up here. This is the renal vein, same thing on this side. This arrow is pointing again to the celiac trunk. This arrow is pointing to the superior mesenteric artery. Down here, this little one right here is the inferior mesenteric artery. So these three, celiac trunk, superior mesenteric, and inferior mesenteric, are all branches off of the abdominal aorta. And then finally, so I said this is the renal vein. Renal vein is in blue right here. Right next to it is the renal artery shown in red. And that is everything here on the torso chart.